y'all. I have to mute while this music is still playing. Hey, so we're just still muted here while we're still waiting on things to start, and this music is playing, so sit tight.
All right, we're gonna get going. How's everyone feeling today? Thank you so much for coming out. I am not your leader, but I am your housekeeper for the day. Just a few bits of housekeeping. We are permitted to be outside here at the Capitol steps. We are not permitted to be inside the building. If you need to use the restrooms or go inside, you go in as a private citizen. No signs, no protesting in there. This is a peaceful protest, and if things go bad, our intrepid leader will be footing the bill. So please keep it peaceful, keep it positive. We are going to have an open mic if people want. At some point, mosey over to our info table to give us your information and get in line. And with that, any other things? Yeah. With that, we're going to do some kickoff speakers, including our intrepid leader, Claire Cusack.
Hello, Connor, will you help me with this part? Sorry. It seems high. Well, can you hear me? Yes. All right. Hello. I'm Claire Cusack. I am a doctoral candidate in clinical psychology, and I am thrilled to join together to make our voices heard. We are here because we are standing up for science. We are here because we are making it clear that science is a public good. And we are here because science touches the lives of every single person, and we know that science saves lives. So today we're going to hear from some Kentuckians on the importance of science because we choose science, not silence. So I'm going to ask you, why are we here? Let's try it again. Why are we here? Cool. So I was born and raised in Northeast Tennessee, town Johnson City. My mom taught biology at a public high school. Some of my favorite memories growing up include decorating a cake like a cell and labeling the organelles. I recall sitting at the kitchen table with my mom working on science fair projects. And what I learned from my mom then, and what is even more clear to me now, is that science brings people together. Science strengthens communities. Whether or not you have childhood memories about science like mine, we all live in a world where we benefit from science. From the light bulb and electricity, to airbags, bridges, and cell phones, to purified water, we do not have modern life without science. Each one of us here has had a cancer diagnosis or heart disease touch our family, and without science, we don't have life-saving treatments. Maybe some of us here are still waiting for a cure that scientists are actively trying to discover at the bench. Science, especially science for the public, lifts us all up. Truly, science is for everyone. So who is science for?
Everyone!
Who is science for?
Everyone!
Great. We are at a time where science is under attack. This month, can you believe it's only been a month? We have seen volatile and chaotic federal funding freezes. We have seen the unlawful firing of thousands of federal employees, many researchers among them. We see Orwellian censorship on the terms we use and the science we're allowed to conduct.
Don't censor science!
We see an executive branch hell-bent on making sure that science doesn't include people it doesn't like. And we see huge slashing to agencies that support science, including the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, Education, Agriculture, you name it, it goes on. In Kentucky, that's over $300 million, which directly supports 3,000 jobs. That is funding to support research that improves agriculture, needed for farmers and to grow our crops. That is funding essential for advancing biomedical research that tackles some of the most pressing challenges of our time, including better treatments for heart disease, cures for cancer, addressing the opioid epidemic, and preventing suicide. Last year, Kentucky received $232 million from the National Institutes of Health. That $232 million produced nearly $600 million in economic activity for the Commonwealth. Put simply, science creates jobs and science saves lives. So we are not going to sit by idly while they try to destroy science, the infrastructure that supports it, and the public's confidence in the evidence. So are we going to let misinformation go unchecked? No! Are we going to be quiet while they try to erode science? No! And are we going to bend to draconian executive orders that stifle progress and put our lives at risk? No! No, we're not. So here's what we're going to do, and here's what we're doing right now. We are here to stand up for science. We are here to defend science as a public good. And we are here to remind everyone that science is a pillar of social, political, and economic progress. To that end, we ask for three things. One, to end censorship and political interference in science. Two, to secure and expand scientific funding. And three, to defend diversity, equity, inclusion, and access in the sciences. And yes, all of them. Again, science is for everyone. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for standing up for science. Before I turn it over to the speakers, I'm going to ask you all just one more time, why are we here? Science! And who is science for? Everyone! All right, great, thanks. So with that, let's get started with some of the scheduled speakers, beginning with Dr. Sherry Levinson, a professor and scientist who works to cure eating disorders.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? All right. So my name is Dr. Sherry Levinson, and I'm a professor at University of Louisville in the Department of Psychological and Brain Sciences and also in the Department of Pediatrics. I also founded the Louisville Center for Eating Disorders, which is the only eating disorder specialty center in the state of Kentucky. My primary job is to carry out science that improves the lives of those with eating disorders and other mental health problems, and also to train the next generation of scientists and clinicians who will carry on this work. So today I'm going to tell you two stories. First, I want to take us back to 1854 London, where a man named Dr. Jon Snow, not the same Jon Snow in Game of Thrones, did something really, really important. In 1854, there was a huge cholera outbreak in London, and no one could quite figure out why it was happening. At the time, it was believed that cholera was an airborne infection carried by dirty particles in the air. But this theory didn't quite fit with who was becoming infected. So Dr. Snow created a map of cholera cases in London's West End, where most of the cholera cases were happening. What he found from this map was that most people who were contracting cholera were all centered around a water pump on Broad Street. Then from that observation, he investigated each cholera case to determine if the person had access to the pump, He then studied water samples, and then he eventually moved the pump handle as an experiment so that people could not access the water. Removing the pump handle made the cases of cholera significantly decline. From this scientific method, Dr. John Snow discovered that cholera was a waterborne disease that was caused by germ cells in the water. In this outbreak, 613 people died, and many, many more would have if not for Dr. John Snow's work. This work also led to fundamental changes in water and waste systems, which have improved the health of people worldwide. I don't know anyone recently who's died of cholera, and I'm pretty thankful for that, and for the scientific work that Dr. John Snow did. I wanted to talk about this story today because it illustrates how science can be used to first solve problems and second, solve problems that improve society's well-being. Woo. Here are just a few more examples of how science has improved America for everyone. Without science, we wouldn't have things like electricity, telephones, cure for diseases, increased lifespan, movies, and clean drinking water. This is a short list of about 1,000 scientific advances that I found online. Science is a problem-solving method, and science helps everyone. But who does science help? Everyone. So my second story today is about myself and the work that my team does. When writing this speech, I was worried that I wouldn't know what to write about. And my husband, who's out here today, said to me, "You'll figure it out. You love science." So that made me think about, why do I love science? I didn't really plan on becoming a scientist, but I fell into it. And I fell into it growing up in Kentucky, where I observed that there were many, many people struggling with their bodies and eating. These observations grew during my undergraduate when I finally decided in my last year at the University of Kentucky that I would work towards a PhD in clinical psychology. I was drawn towards science because I learned that I could solve problems and make our world a better place through science. This is why I love science. The work we do has real impact and can change people's lives for the better. This is what drew me to the work of mental health, and in particular, eating disorders. Someone dies of an eating disorder every 52 minutes. That means if we're here rallying for 2 hours, 2 people will have died from an eating disorder. This is not okay. In Kentucky, there are 900,000 people with eating disorders, and many of these are children and adolescents. The most recent statewide data that my colleagues and I collected because of science funding shows that more than 30% of middle schoolers are engaging in problematic restrictive eating, and 45% are engaging in binge eating behaviors. This is not okay. This is a huge problem. 1 in 5 kids in schools have an eating disorder. The work that we do on my team in the Eating Anxiety Treatment, or EAT Lab, is working on science that will solve this problem. And here's the kicker. This work is funded by the federal government, and in particular, the National Institute of Health. We feel so lucky to have this funding, to do this work, and to be able to save lives and prevent more eating disorders from developing. Our team has several large federal grants, working on a suicide prevention program, figuring out why kids get eating disorders so that we can stop it, and developing new personalized treatments for eating disorders. We also have several grants that are supporting the next generation of eating disorder scientists. The work that we are doing is going to have real impact in Kentucky and across the world. It will help build new treatments, prevent disease, and prevent deaths by suicide. And not just for a few people, for everyone that suffers from eating disorders, because everyone does. I can bet that every single person standing here has either had, has, or knows someone who has had or has an eating disorder. However, it's worth mentioning that eating disorder and mental health research in general is significantly underfunded. Only about 73 cents per person per affected individual goes to research on eating disorders. Compare this to $58.65 per affected individual with autism and $86.97 per person with schizophrenia. We need more research for eating disorder research and other mental health research, not less. We need more funding, not less. What is happening right now in the federal government is causing science in Kentucky and across the United States to halt, including the work my team does. We won't be able to keep solving problems. Things are getting worse for scientists in the US and in Kentucky every day. As of Wednesday, I confirmed with multiple sources that there have been no notices of award from the National Institute of Health issued since January. Boo! Yesterday, we learned that several of our scientists in training grants are likely to be canceled. What does this mean exactly? Without these notices of award and with grants canceled, science stops. Solving life or death problems stops. Training scientists to carry out this crucial work stops. Many researchers and their teams are running out of money. If notice of awards are not unpaused, entire teams that take years and years to train and build will be dismantled. This includes things like cancer research, Alzheimer's, opioid use disorders, mental health, basic science, vaccines, rare disease research. Everything will be stopped or harmed. Our team is supposed to get our funding for one of our large grants for year 3 in June. This work is building a suicide prevention program for people with eating disorders, though what we learn will be able to use by anyone that might face death by suicide. If this funding does not come in, and if grants are canceled, people will lose jobs, decades of work will be lost, and the work will be stopped halfway through, which is harmful for the people who are in the study currently and economically wasteful. Remember, for every federal dollar that Kentucky gets, $2.50 goes back to the economy in Kentucky. On Tuesday, I learned about a 29-year-old woman whose eating disorder developed at age 16. Last week, she took her last breath and died from medical complications of a 13-year fight with an eating disorder. A 29-year-old who had her whole life ahead of her. We need to solve this problem. People should not die from eating disorders. We need to solve many other similar problems, and science is how we do it. Without federal funding, science problem stops. We have our work cut out for us. Sad to say for those in power, scientists do not give up. We tend to be stubborn and extremely persistent. We know what it feels like to be rejected and have to keep persisting despite setback after setback. This is something I train my students in. You don't give up, you keep going. We will not give up on science or making this world better. Keep calling your legislators, showing up for protests like this, and sharing your stories about how science makes life better for everyone, even with people you might not normally talk with. These stories are how we persist. I'm going to end, I guess, with a third story. When I was putting this talk together, I came across my 8-year-old daughter's book called 100 Cool Scientific Facts. I really was like, Karma, what are you like? You're just like giving me this book right now, right? One of the first pages I opened reminded me of the fact that all humans are made of stardust. Science figured that one out. Pretty freaking cool, right? Sometimes we all need a reminder that we're made of the same materials and that these are the same materials we see shining down from us and that we're standing upon now. This reminds me of two things. First, science is bigger than all of us. And second, science is something that links us. Science is for everyone. Who's science for? Everyone. And we need more science funding, not less. What do we need? More funding. So let's keep shouting this as loud as we can until we see the changes we need to support our work and keep scientific problem solving going. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dr. Levinson. And now we'll hear from Dr. Brian Carter from Pediatrics.
I feel like I'm at a Big Bang Theory cast selection here. Whoops, let me get this a little higher here. How's everybody doing? Thank you for coming out. This is awesome. This is fantastic. And happy to address you. Kind of representing the medical sciences and the health sciences today. I've been at the Department of Pediatrics for 4 decades, and I don't look like it, I'm sure. But I've seen so much change. When I first came, the Department of Pediatrics had 26 full-time faculty members. We now have 200 plus, the largest department in the School of Medicine. But that growth came because of the science that we're talking about funding today. That growth came because we were making advances in diseases like, I'll give the example of cystic fibrosis. And in fact, I have a great nephew who's 29 and has CF. And when I first got to the University of Louisville and worked with the CF clinic, the average age of a person with cystic fibrosis was around the late teens to the early 20s, just when you're entering your stage of life for a lot of you out there. Now, due to the advances in science, we have people living into their 40s, 50s, and beyond. Some may have a full lifespan because of the advances in science. That doesn't come at that. Fantastic. I'm here to get you guys worked up, by the way, okay? Because imagine in 4 decades, we've made those kind of advances with something like cystic fibrosis, a genetic disorder. We've discovered genes. We've found the roots for so many diseases. We're looking at cancer now. And it's not a time to pull back. Right? This is the time to move forward. One of the big things that's really been upsetting is that the indirect costs that go with the grant typically have been about 30 to 45% of the other expenses for a grant. The current administration has reduced that to 15%. I mean, that's for your... More, right? More. Because 15% buys nothing. You need your lab, you need your postgraduate students, we need your postdocs, we need the people who fuel this thing, but yet we're cutting back, we're doing less, and trying to do more with less. Another thing that's happened with this is that executive orders have been directly banning any kind of references to gender and sexuality in grants. Papers are being pulled from being published just because they have some reference to gender in them. Funds are being withheld. So science is halted in the middle of all this just in order to make sure someone's happy that we're not making somebody else upset or someone's not included and excluded. So this atmosphere that's being created is really a Debbie the Downer, right? Wah, 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 for researchers and for scientists to look forward to getting their grants funded and to advancing healthcare, advancing our technology, and advancing everything we do in this country that makes this country great. Our own Kentucky State Legislature, by the way, I just heard this the other day on the news report, is looking to replicate Doge. Okay. Yes. The rocket blowing up a couple of days ago, right? And the Tesla trucks that are not functioning very well. Well, these people, that's the model for what our state legislature wants to do to get rid of fraud and scams in our government that probably aren't there for the most part. So these are the things that the legislators need to hear from us. We got information up here in pamphlets that tell us all about who we contact, how we can contact them, what we need to say. It's best if they hear your voice and you talk to somebody rather than an email or leaving a text message. But do whatever you got to do to get that out. Kentucky is a small state. We're surrounded by states around us that larger in population, larger in terms of the number of major cities there. We need to encourage people to invest in Kentucky. We're not going to do it if we discourage science, if we discourage research, okay? If we say you can come here, but you're not going to get funded, okay? And you're not going to be able to say what you want to say, put into your papers what needs to be put, and advance science for everybody. So what we got to do is we really have to get out there and say to our legislators, say to our fellow citizens that we need to support science. We need to get rid of these restrictive limitations that are putting on so we can go forward as a state. As you heard just a minute ago, science drives the economy. So the University of Kentucky, the University of Louisville, all of our state universities, without science, would probably lose about a third of the income, of the revenue that it drives them. Do we want strong universities? Yes! So, you know what to do. You're here. You're ready to mobilize. I've got you worked up. Take it out there on the streets, okay?
We'll try some chants in a minute, but okay, we're going to introduce Dr. Rachel Torres, neuroscientist extraordinaire.
Hi, everybody. I'm so thrilled. This great crowd. This is wonderful. I'm Rachel Torres. I'm a neuroscientist at U of L. I did my undergrad at UK. Super happy to be here. In my PhD program, I spent 6 years working with people with spinal cord injuries. Arguably one of the worst hands you can be dealt. A lot of not so good hands you can be dealt, but most of spinal cord injuries happen through either car accidents or violence. So it's a pretty rough hand to be dealt. So one of the things that happens in spinal cord injuries, of course, most people, especially with high injuries, they cannot walk. But when asked what they would prefer, if with research to help them, would they prefer more research on blood pressure control or helping them walk? It chose blood pressure control. It sounds like, whoa, that's weird. Wouldn't you want to walk? Here's what happens because people with spinal cord injuries, blood pressure goes way up and way down. Here's the kind of things that happen in their lives. And I just wanted to tell some stories about that. That's why I'm here today. I think stories are a great way to learn. So if you have a spinal cord injury, especially a high injury, which most of them are, most are cervical, if you feel any sort of pain, like say you and I, for instance, are sitting on our couch and the cushion gets bundled up under our leg. We're like, oh, it's irritating, and you scoot it away. When you have a cervical spinal cord injury, you can't feel that. So that sensation of something bothering me doesn't go up to your brain to tell you to move. So instead, the body finds another way, as bodies tend to do, to get information where it needs to be. And so blood pressure shoots up to stroke-causing levels. And for some people, it doesn't happen just when they're sitting on a weird cushion. It'll happen when their shoelace is too tight. They need to go to the bathroom. They're trying to make love all the time. It'll happen sometimes up and down all day long, and they don't even know why. The flip side of that is their blood pressure also goes really low. It's like, great. This is terrible. So what happens when your blood pressure goes low is you don't have the blood in your brain to think straight, to make decisions. Perhaps after you eat, it goes so low that you've got to sit back in your chair. Maybe you're in a restaurant and you can't sit up and talk with your family. It's day-to-day getting through life. Things we take for granted are really, really hard for people with spinal cord injuries. So my team developed something really simple that is never going to get a Super Bowl commercial because it's drug-free. We taught people how to breathe in a certain way to raise their blood pressure and breathe in a certain way to lower it. The way I like to explain it is, if you've ever heard of high-intensity interval training to get in shape, you work really hard, then you rest, then you work really hard, then you rest. That tells the nervous system, I can handle this challenge because I'm resting right after. I'm not going to, my nervous system's not going to freak out, it's going to be okay. So that was the basic concept behind it. And it worked really well. We had a lot of cardiovascular improvements, and people were able to change their blood pressure with their breathing throughout their day, and it was just really, really cool. So that being said, I'm thrilled with that. And one super quick story. As researchers, we're not supposed to have favorite participants, but out of my 21 people, all with cervical spinal cord injuries, this one particular person, he was 28 years old, got T-boned in a car wreck, had a C3 injury, so really high. So he had not only no movement of his legs and was unable to walk, he had no control neck down. So he moved his wheelchair with a tube with his mouth. And guess who out of all the participants was the best at moving their blood pressure? That makes the hair on my arm stand up. So arguably someone who has been dealt the worst hand is the best at this super simple, non-drug treatment that can certainly save money. How easy it is to learn how to breathe. I mean, that's free. So he was really great. And I loved working with this population. It was a wonderful group. But here's something really, really interesting. Guess who paid for me to get my PhD? NASA. And you might be thinking, what, you're not a rocket scientist? No, not even close. Because guess what happens in space? Your nervous system, with arguably people who have been dealt some of the best hands in life. You got to be super fit to be an astronaut, right? But when you go to space, what happens is gravity is not pulling your blood down like it normally would. So normally, like standing out here right now, especially because we've been standing for a while, gravity's pulling our blood down and our nervous system pushes it back up to our brain so we can think, we can walk, we can eat, we can smile, we can protest, things like that. But that doesn't happen in space. So the nervous systems of astronauts become just like the nervous systems of people with high spinal cord injuries. That's why they paid for my education. So there are certain other, I'm not going to name names, people that own space companies that would really like this information, right? I didn't say that, but I feel it. And that doesn't make any sense. It's something that is going to improve lives, something that saves money. I mean, how many signs have I seen? And someone up here said it too, that the investment of $1 brings back 2.5 to our economy. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I want to cut waste too. I mean, I eat the ends off my bread, you know. But that's not waste. I mean, you and I take for granted when we need to go to the bathroom. It's annoying. It's like, oh. I had a participant, through learning how to breathe and pay attention to her body, after 10 years of having a cervical spinal cord injury, felt the need to pee for the first time. I mean, that's amazing. Things that we take for granted that people need just to get through their day. So thank you for listening to my stories. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm continuing my work in Sherry Levinson's lab now, working with people with eating disorders, and I'm privileged and blessed. So have a great day, guys, and thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Torres. And now I'd like to invite Dr. Martha Bickford.
Thanks. Yes, yeah. I'm Martha Bickford. I'm a university professor. I was told by my chair not to announce my affiliation, but all of these previous speakers were my colleagues. So I've been a scientist for over 40 years, and I've always taken for granted that the dedication and passion of scientists was valued by society. Now I've realized that this is not a given, and we need to communicate and advocate for science, especially basic science. So, yeah, why is basic science so important to society? First, basic science research is the foundation for all biomedical advances. For some policymakers, the lag between scientific discoveries and medical breakthroughs diminishes the value of basic science. But without basic research, we would not have things like insulin, antibiotics, or cancer treatments. As a neuroscientist, I feel the need to point out that basic research to understand the amazing complexities of the brain and spinal cord are the necessary building blocks for understanding the root causes and eventual treatment of chronic mental illnesses such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, disorders such as autism and schizophrenia, and injuries caused by strokes or trauma. So my first point is science is valuable. Okay, second, if the treatment of these devastating conditions is of value, then we must also value the pipeline to train future researchers. In Kentucky, this training occurs in many venues, but particularly in our colleges and universities, where NIH funding is of critical importance, including the current negotiated indirect costs. NIH funding has not only supported my lab, but also the training of many current and future scientists. I want the U.S. to remain a leader in science, and I want my trainees to be able to contribute to this. This can only happen if NIH funding is increased, including grants that support the education and training of future scientists. So yeah, that's my second point, is support future scientists. Okay, finally, support for science supports our economy. We've heard this in the previous talks. Less than 1% of the federal budget supports research, and Kentucky receives less than 1% of the extramural grants awarded by the NIH. However, federal grants make a huge impact for our state. As we've heard before, every NIH dollar is more than doubled in terms of the economic activity that is generated. And of course, there is no better investment in Kentucky's workforce and economy than higher education. Training in STEM disciplines is particularly important for advancements and innovations that contribute to Kentucky's economy. Again, NIH funding is an integral part of this economic development, and scientists are worth the investment. So, just my final point. Science works for Kentucky.
I love that. Yeah, it seems like maybe we can take some time for chanting between the next talks. People have some wiggles, yeah? All right. I'm not the extrovert I look like, so Allie is going to lead us in some chants.
Hi everyone, it's so great to see you today. You can't see her, but my dog Nellie is here. She's almost a year old, and this is her first act of political activism, so... Woo! All right, we're gonna get going with some chants. Who is science for? Everyone! Who is science for? Everyone! There we go! Science, not silence! Science, not silence! Who is science for? Everyone! We want science, we don't want... Science! When we kill cancer, we help save science! What does saving science do?
Now we're going to hear from some early career scientists. I'll give you a break. You can go next. Okay. Let's start with Kira.
So hi everyone, I'm Kiara, so I'm a doctoral student in neuroscience, and I'm so thankful to be here today standing up in solidarity with all of you for science. So I'm here because I fear for my career, I fear for my family's future, and I fear, frankly, for our country. So I was born and raised here in the Lake Cumberland area, so right here in Kentucky, these beautiful hills have been my home for my entire life. Yeah, yes. And like many other Kentuckians, I grew up impoverished and needing access to supplemental economic programs. And I was also a single teen mother during my undergraduate studies who continued to rely on those safety nets. And because of those experiences, I see the immense value in policies that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because who is science for? Everyone! And without those practices, people like me would not get a seat at the table. And as a junior scientist, I'm especially vulnerable during this uncertain and tumultuous time. And to give you a story, this past August, I submitted an F-31 diversity grant application to the National Institutes of Health. Yes, thank you. And this grant scored in the first percentile. Yes. And if you know NIH, you know it's golf scoring. The lower, the better. However, due to the administration's executive order barring federal funds from contributing to diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, that grant will not be awarded. Yeah. And in fact, the advisory council meeting has been postponed with no rescheduling on the horizon. So, yes, this administration's commitment to anti-intellectualism is alarming. The public trust in science has experienced massive erosion as a result of this commitment. This is unacceptable. And the so-called Department of Government Efficiency's mission to senselessly and illegally slash critical programs that fund science is unacceptable. Yes. So we have to stand up for science and protect all who wish to participate in science. We have to defend diversity, equity, and inclusion within science, as well as protect the funding that promotes this inclusion. Because who is science for? Yes. And why are we here? Yes. Science, not silence. Science is a public good, and I'll echo this point. Science is a central pillar of social progress. Again, so why are we here? Thank you.
Amazing. And now we'll hear from Autumn Martin.
Hi, hello everyone. It's so exciting to be here. I want to first say that I'm very excited. I actually have some students of mine here, which was just a surprise, but very exciting. So I am a PhD candidate here in Kentucky, and I have had quite an interesting point to where I am as a candidate. I'm from Middle Tennessee, just south of Nashville. And I have seen multiple programs that have helped students, both in the K-12 level, universities, to promote science. So one that I like to really think about, and one that is currently in threat, just like here in Kentucky, we had this program that I was honored to work with as an undergraduate that specifically had a weekend seminar for young girls from middle through high school, in which we brought them to the university that I was at to introduce them to all different forms of science, from neuroscience to biology to chemistry. We had the robotics department all there to especially promote young women in science. Yeah, so great. And what was also so awesome about this was that so many of these girls came from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, to which we got grants and funding that provided them a free tuition for the entire weekend with transportation and food included, to where they could only focus on having that experience of science for the entire weekend. It was wonderful. And awesome. So something that as I've gone into my PhD now, and I have kids myself, I think back on what they're gonna get to experience one day. I've got one child who's in middle school now, and they're already pushing about college, right? Where are you gonna go to college? What are you gonna do, right? And she'd come home and she's like, well, I don't know. It seems like the options are being very limited these days, right? She's like, yeah, boo, I don't know, right? She's like, I don't know if I can go into science because what I've heard from you is that, well, they're trying to cut that, right? They don't want women in certain spaces. They don't want people who don't look like who they want in these spaces either. Boo. Yeah. And as a sociologist and with a medical background as well, it is concerning because science is done in so many different ways and helps in so many different factors, right? So seeing that someone so young who hasn't even hit some of the biggest milestones yet, right? Can't even drive, which is a very big milestone at that age, right? Has a conceptualization of what is happening right now and how it's going to impact her future going forward. So I am just so concerned where we are right now, right? For myself, for my future, my family's futures, my students' futures. This is something that we have talked about in our class of, well, if we have bills that impact our universities and prevent us from being able to teach things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we have things that are cutting funding to science, how are we going to have students continue to go into the university, right? Boo, I agree, yeah. So I wonder, about this for my students' future, mine, myself, right? And I'm just so honored to be able to be here with everyone else who have these same feelings and these concerns, right? So all I can say is we keep pushing back. We don't let them continue to silence us. And yeah, science, not silence. For sure, yes. And keep pushing the fact that all of the people have come up here to talk about today is that science is for everyone. It helps everyone in all different manners, from like people before me have talked about with electricity and our day-to-day things to medical advancements. It's going to impact our ability to live from day-to-day life. So thank you guys for coming out today. I appreciate everyone, and definitely continue on with our fight.
And we all remember Allie. Here's Allison Grady.
Thank you, Claire. So as she said, my name's Allison, or Allie, I respond to both, and I have the honor of also working in the Eating Anxiety Treatment Lab at the University of Louisville under direction of Dr. Sherry Levinson, who spoke earlier today. And I'm also going to be beginning a PhD program in clinical psychology in the fall, so I wanted to come up and Thank you. I wanted to come up and stand in front of you today to offer my perspective as an early career researcher on the current state of science in America. So first, I want to echo the sentiments of everyone that has stood here before me and say thank you for being here today, standing up for science, for scientific research, for us in the present and us in the future. It means a lot to me because, quite frankly, without science, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in Kentucky. I wouldn't be doing this work with you all. But we'll circle back to that in a minute. As I said, currently I work in the EAT Lab at U of L as a research coordinator. And what that means is it's my job to facilitate participant correspondence and study progression for two of our labs' National Institute of Health-funded R34 grants aimed at personalizing eating disorder treatment, increasing accessibility to quality eating disorder care, and preventing eating disorder relapse. Every day of my life, I interact with folks who have been failed by the system, folks who have been living with an eating disorder for years, but couldn't access quality treatment due to barriers involving the cost of care, their geographic location, and other individual characteristics that make up their identity, consciously or subconsciously preventing them from healing from their mental illness and truly living. One of my favorite feminist scholars and activists, Bell Hooks, who also happens to be a fellow Kentuckian, thank you, yeah, eloquently states in much of her work that we live within a white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. Boo. And that we must acknowledge the interlocking systems of oppression that disadvantage certain groups based on certain aspects of their identity and how they culminate. In the EAT Lab, our work directly combats the white supremacist capitalist patriarchy by challenging the one-size-fits-all approach to mainstream mental health care. Yeah, give it up. It's pretty awesome. We learn about all of our participants' unique identities and then tailor their treatment to accommodate for their differences. Our research, our science, is made possible through funding awarded by the National Institutes of Health and has demonstrated treatment outcomes for folks with personalized care are better than those who get the one-size-fits-all mainstream approach to mental health care. It helps beat the world's most deadliest psychiatric illness, or second most deadly psychiatric illness, and validates the lived experiences of our participants, because everyone deserves access to quality mental health care that works, regardless of all of their interlocking identities. Thank you. Without funding from the NIH, our team would be unable to do this work. I and my colleagues would not be paid. I make my livelihood off of grant funding. And in addition to being unable to afford rent or food or other things that you need in order to survive, I wouldn't have been able to rescue my puppy Nellie, who I mentioned earlier, who's with me today, who was found in an abandoned barn in the rural eastern part of our state, kind of close to where we are today. I wouldn't be able to afford rescuing her if it weren't for the grant funding that the EAT Lab receives. So not only is science saving human lives, but it's also saving animal lives. Without funding from the NIH, people who live in mental health care deserts, people who are unable to access quality care, and people who have been in and out of more standard treatment practices with no luck in resolving their symptoms would not be seeking improvement in their eating disorder symptoms like they are in our EAT Lab studies. Without funding from the National Institute of Health, lives would be lost. Without funding from the NIH, I would have been unable to gain post-baccalaureate research training in preparation for doctoral training in clinical psychology. Currently, due to the volatility and unknown future of scientific funding, countless early career scientists who are exceptional scholars, researchers, and clinicians who hold incredible promise as future psychologists of the United States and who are quite frankly overqualified to begin graduate training are unable to gain admission to some of our country's universities right now. Boo! For many, this means that 6+ years of experience, of school, of training feels like it was for nothing. For many, the future feels bleak, and for many, they are questioning, was it truly worth it? Was all of this work and effort and just trying to make the world a better place worth it? These folks, especially these early career researchers, just want to help save people's lives, to help change the system and ensure folks who need treatment are truly seen. Right now, so many of us feel unseen. The world, the future, feels as though it has descended into darkness. So many, if not all of us, are just really, truly exhausted. We are so tired and we are sick of having to rationalize our worth. We are exhausted from having to stand up time and time again as the powerful attempt to push us down, but we keep standing up. We keep showing up, and I am proud and honored to be here with you today. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge your strength and your power and your resilience. May all that you do be an act of rebellion against the symptom and the system. May you continue to fight while seeing the good even while encased in darkness. Another feminist scholar and activist, Audre Lorde, notes in her work that the master's tools can never dismantle the master's house. Today, my friends, my fellow activists, we showed up with our own tools, and that is what will continue to dismantle the master's house. Do not forget your power. Do not forget your why. Science holds power, and we hold science, and therefore we hold the power. There's power to the people, and that's why they want to take it away. And that's why we must continue to fight. Science fuels democracy. Again, why they want to take it away. And science is for everyone. Who is science for? Everyone! Science must be funded because science saves lives. What does science do? Saves lives! Thank you so much for being here today. You are all powerful, and I appreciate your presence.
All right. Thanks, Allie. And so, yeah, this is beyond my dreams. There's a lot going on at the federal level, and there's also stuff going on at the state level that we can do. And so now I'd like to introduce Dr. Trent Garrison, who's the policy chair at the Kentucky Academy of Sciences.
Thank you very much. And I just wanted to take a second to say thank you to all the organizers. I don't even know their names. I know Claire. But this has been a great event. Thank you, everyone. Somebody left their phone up here? I don't know. Is that yours? Okay. All right. I am Trent Garrison. I am the policy chair of Kentucky Academy of Science. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about what we can do if my paper doesn't blow away here. So, as you know, science is the pursuit of knowledge. It's the rigorous testing of hypotheses and the relentless quest for truth. From the climate crisis to vaccines to everything in between, everyone benefits from science, whether you're a Kentuckian, an American, or anyone really living in this world. However, we must acknowledge that the integrity of scientific research and the freedom of scientific expression are both facing unprecedented challenges. From anti-fluoridation to anti-tenure to anti-water regulations to anti-DEI, all happening right here behind us, right now. We see this in the erosion of trust in established scientific institutions, the spread of misinformation, and the politicization of scientific findings. Science should not be a political or partisan issue. That's right. It's a matter of safeguarding the very foundation of an informed society. So, what can we do? This is a point in the commercial where the music turns good. What can we do? So, here in Kentucky, we are fortunate to have the Kentucky Academy of Science. And I'm not trying to co-opt or anything. I was asked to talk on behalf of Kentucky Academy of Science. I assume that if you're here, you're familiar with that. It's the largest scientific interdisciplinary network in the state. And we've been around for over 100 years, since 1914, when we were involved in the Scopes trial, for those of you who are familiar with that. So it's a nonpartisan organization dedicated to promoting scientific understanding and informed policy. Our Science Policy Committee grew out of the March for Science movement in 2017. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that, and came to that event. I was one of the organizers in Lexington, and we talked about science policy a lot in Kentucky Academy of Science, but it wasn't until then that we really, formed a separate committee for that. We have to do something to influence policy and become more involved, especially at the state level. We're focused a lot on the state level, on the national level to some degree too. Our thought is we can have a bigger impact on influence locally that affects our lives, our colleges, our schools, and our students right here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Thank you. I have learned that effective advocacy requires more than just passion. which is what I had, and that's all I had. I had passion, and I came to things like this, and I didn't know what to do with it. I had lots of energy. But it requires crafting compelling stories and arguments and communicating effectively and building bridges with those whom we don't necessarily agree. I've been at lots of meetings in these buildings, and that's what Kentucky Academy of Science, the Policy Committee, tries to foster, are those types of relationships. We have to meet with people that we don't necessarily agree with and come up with some sort of compromise. It might not be ideally what we're looking for, but it's a step in the right direction as opposed to not talking to them at all. Thank you. We have workshops, resources. We have a website that tracks every state bill from all the 14 or however many steps it is. You can go to our website right now and it'll tell you where these anti-DEI bills, anti-tenure bills, it tells you where those are on our science policy website. And we invite you to join us. There's about 5 to 10 of us who do this work. Most of us are non-paid. And we've done a tremendous amount of work, especially during the state legislative session that lasts 30 days, but it seems like a lifetime right now. We're in the last few weeks of it right now. There's probably stuff going on that I don't know of today. So here's my plea. Please join us at the Kentucky Academy of Science. I have some pamphlets and a sign-up sheet right over here. If you're associated with any sort of college or organization in the state of Kentucky, it's likely free to you to sign up for KES. And if not, it's really cheap. We are the only organization in the state dedicated to following science policy interdisciplinarily. We regularly have, just a small number of people, so your help would be very much appreciated. I will close. I'm the last speaker today, and I just want to close by saying we are Kentuckians, we are Americans, and we are united in our commitment to scientific research and integrity. With your help, we can do much more than that. There's a lot of people here, so let's all put all this energy into use and moving it towards changing policy, starting here in Frankfort. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
All right, so we had some scheduled speakers, but a lot of y'all showed up, and science means something to all of us. So we're going to open it up. If you are interested in sharing why you chose to stand up for science today, you can just come up here. We're going to vet to make sure you don't say something wild. But I'd like to start it off with our Dr. Laura Schweitzer is going to start us off.
I'm Dr. Laura Schweitzer. I'm a past interim dean of the School of Medicine at the University of Louisville, and I am a neuroscientist. I think it's great that you're all here today, but I want to share some things with you and motivate you to do even more. So the new head of the National Institutes of Science is Dr. Bhattacharya. He is the physician from Stanford who advocated for herd immunity during the COVID epidemic. In other words, just let them die. The new head of the Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., in response to the measles epidemic that's spreading from Texas to other states now, said in response to that, kids get measles every year. Just let them die. He didn't quite say that, but the implication is just let them die. So that's what you're up against here. You are a group of scientists. You're passionate about science. It's great that you're here today. This is not a check the box kind of occasion. This is a let's get started now occasion. Let's get started now. Sign up for the Kentucky Academy of Sciences. Stay tuned into the news and other activism you can take. You need to do something. I have committed myself to doing something every day. Commit yourself to doing something every day. Thank you.
Well, hello. Is this a rally? What do we want? You got it. My name is Terrell Holder, and I'm the chair of the Kentucky chapter of the Sierra Club. And I wanted to... Thank you. I wanted to talk really quickly about what's happening in our legislature right now and what you can do. And I'll tell you a little story to give a little background. There's a bill out there called Senate Bill 89. Have you heard of Senate Bill 89? This is a bill that's going to allow dumping in formerly protected Kentucky waters and groundwaters. It's going to make drinking water a challenge for people all over the state, particularly in poor counties in the eastern part of Kentucky. Now, Senate Bill 89 passed the Senate across party lines. All the Republicans voted yes, all the Democrats voted no. We have, along with other organizations around the state, put a massive effort to let our legislators know that this is a bad bill, that we don't want it. Now, in the House, since tens of thousands of people have called, they're looking at that bill, writing amendments that will maybe make it a little bit better, but we don't want it at all. So I want to tell you just one thing. There's an 800 number that you can call about any bill that you're concerned about. 1-800-372-7181. 1-800-372-7181. You can talk to people on the other sides one-on-one. It won't change their mind. But if 10,000 of you talk to people on the other side, they start thinking that their seat is in danger. So your voice matters no matter what bill it is. Senate Bill 89 is an anti-science bill. It's a bill to allow polluters easy access to the waterways of Kentucky. To dump. Now, that may not be your bill, but whatever bill you're interested in, the one thing we've got is power in numbers. Power in numbers. And that's why you're here today, to speak up. So when you've got to call, you've got to tell them what you're opposed to. Because if we don't, this fight against knowledge, this fight against science will gain traction. We can't let that happen. Thank you very much. Call your legislators.
You're here. Okay, hello. I'd love to introduce Verity, who has something to say.
Science saved my life. Thank you for my G2 people.
Thank you so much for coming out today. My name is Cindy Corbett. I am a scientist, but the reason I'm here is because I run some of the social media for March for Science Louisville, for Together We Will Louisville, which try to educate people and help them find ways that they can take action. So I really appreciate that you mentioned the Legislative Research Council's phone number. And for those who maybe are more on the introverted side and the idea of calling and talking about a bill makes you nervous, I have to tell you, the people who answer the phone are so lovely. They're so nice. It takes less than 2 minutes usually. What happens is you call. If you're put on hold, that's a good thing because that means other people are calling. Yes. I love it when I get put on hold for a few minutes, but not forever. And they'll say, welcome to the LRC comment line. How can I help you? And you say your name and you tell them your address or at least your zip code because they want to target that to your legislators. And then they say, what is your message? And I usually have a long list that takes about 5 minutes. If you sign up for Together We Will Louisville, you can get access to that list as well. I publish some of those in the March for Science Louisville. I'm talking about Facebook, by the way. I'm old. I don't do the other stuff. Anyway, you call and you say, I would like to tell my representative that I oppose whatever bill it is. At this point, it would be SB 89 because SB 89 has already passed through the Senate. It is now coming up in the House. If you sign up for the legislative tracking that Trent Garrison talked about, you will know where the bill is so that you know where to target it. If you don't know, you just tell them, tell all the senators, tell all the legislators to oppose this thing. If it's already gone through their House, they'll ignore you, but that's okay. So you come up with your list, you go through, I oppose this one, I oppose that one. You don't even have to say anything else because all they're going to pay attention to is how many yays for this bill versus nays for that bill. Every once in a while, I'll put another thing in for SB 89. I always say, I want clean drinking water. That's as much as I say. Some of the people who answer the phone, they're very nice, but they're very slow. So they will take time to type out your message and find what bill you're talking about, and then you move on to the next one. I always try to have something that I support as well. I support bill, whatever it is. I don't have them in my head right now. But it takes just a few minutes. And every day you can make this call. The message line opens at 7 in the morning. So you can drink your coffee and start your day and then move on knowing that you have made a statement that your legislators do pay attention to. Trent was just mentioning, he forgot to say that some of the science bills, he asks his legislator, how many calls did you get on this? And they'll say, not even 10. There are at least, 6 times that many people here. You can tip the balance in terms of what they think people care about. So, join the Facebook group Together We Will Louisville. Look at March for Science Louisville. I will do my best to keep them updated on time. So, I want you to call your legislator. What are you going to do? Thank you. Every day.
Hello, everyone. My name's Dr. Rebecca Bossetti, and I am a faculty member at the University of Kentucky. I need to put the caveat out there that I don't speak for my university, but I'm here speaking on behalf of myself, my colleagues, my students, and the populations that I seek to serve with my research. Thank you. I am a first-generation college student. Access is everything, and because science serves everyone, everyone deserves to have a voice in the science that is done. That is essential to work for science that serves everyone. Science training has taught me that there are a lot of things in this world that I don't know and that I don't understand. It's also taught me how important it is to trust experts and scientists in their field. I don't know anything about chemistry. I don't know anything about medicine. I don't know anything about physics or geology, but I trust the people who have dedicated their lives to learning in those fields because I know they care about the truth. I study social work and the juvenile justice system. All of my work has been dedicated to healthy development for all kids in our country. From looking at our education systems, looking at our child welfare system, looking at our juvenile justice system, and all of the ways that we can do better for our kids to foster their healthy development. A group of researchers that I have known advocated for years and years and years until 2020, which was the first year that the federal government allocated funds in the budget for child sexual abuse prevention. The first year was just 5 years ago, and those funds to research the prevention of sexual abuse are at risk. I am thrilled to see so many children here today, to see that they care about policies that are being made, even though they do not have a vote. And I'm here on behalf of all of the kids that my research serves, who do not have a voice in this system, but deserve to be heard when it comes to research and funding that is essential to protecting their lives and their development. Science has also impacted me personally. Science saved my dad's life when he was 19 years old. Science saved my mom's life when I was only 7. Science has saved some of my best friends' lives from sepsis, from paralysis, from major depression disorder, from ectopic pregnancy and eating disorders. Science has touched every single person that I have known and loved in my life, and all of the people that I haven't known and loved in my life. And I want us all to constantly be reflecting on how science serves us. I am a product of IVF. Science is the very reason that I am standing here today. And I don't take that responsibility lightly, which is why I am out here. I also want to say that science protects kids from violence in addition to helping them thrive. And science encourages kids to become interested and curious adults who care about making a difference in the world around them. So we must advocate for education. We must advocate for science funding. We must advocate for a healthier planet that we all depend on to survive. And so I would like to end by saying that as scientists, we will not be silenced. We will not be censored, and we will not be prevented from continuing to do the work that improves the lives of everyone around us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Bailey. I am Miss Highland Heights. Is anyone here from Northern Kentucky University? Norse Nation? Anyway, got a couple? So I live in Bowling Green. I went to Western Kentucky University, and I am a scientist. I studied biochemistry, and now I am an artist. And you might be asking yourself, well, Amanda, why are you standing up here with a sash on? Why are you here? Why are you working as an artist if you studied biochemistry? And I'd like to talk a little bit to follow up our previous speaker about curiosity in students. So I'm competing for the job of Miss Kentucky this summer, and I'm very excited about that. But what energizes me the most is the community service initiative that we are encouraged to promote. So my initiative is called Start with STEM. It's about encouraging parents to be involved in project-based at-home learning for students that combines art and science, because my goal is to keep Kentucky curious. My goal is to inspire kids to look at the world around them, to see these leaves without trees and not think, oh, well, those are a bunch of branches, but say, oh, this tree is dormant because of winter. I learned that in my science class. And to say that I want to paint a photo of that because I think it's a beautiful landscape and I resonate with winter. And I think that one of the things when promoting something new and starting a new organization that you look for is, well, how much of my life can I put towards this, right? Because all of my advocacy at the current moment is unfunded. And I have a goal of bringing Start with STEM to as many schools as possible. Yesterday, I spoke with students in Maysville, Kentucky at Mason County Intermediate School Systems. And I remember I got into the science class because it's Read Across America Week. So I read Dr. Seuss' book about the solar system and about weather. But the science class, I was able to do my Start with STEM projects. And the way that the students lit up when I used coffee filters to teach chromatography with washable markers and something very, very basic. They were so excited and energized to see the colors, and they were so excited, and they didn't want me to leave. And I remember speaking with the teacher who organized it, and I said, Miss Gilvin, you know, these kids were so excited. I wasn't expecting that. I thought that I'd be another guest speaker, but she told me that this education right now, they're being pushed to not master subjects and master materials, but to just keep going, right? No child left behind, but we end up leaving a lot of kids behind. And so with these national funding cuts, and I look towards my passion and my goal of spreading my love for science and my beauty and awe that I see in the world around us, and I think, well, I could have applied for grants as I get a little further along, but now that I'm hearing that grants are getting cut and that people aren't trusting the education and the people who are experts in their fields, that people are being questioned by those who aren't educated and don't know how to find the proper materials to kind of back up their theories, I'm just discouraged. And I think that, like I said, my goal is to keep Kentucky curious, and I'm very impressed as well to see the kiddos who are out here today who are sharing that they have a love for science or a love for education and learning. And I hope that you all will share in this goal of mine to keep Kentucky curious. Let's keep Kentucky curious! Keep Kentucky curious! Thank you so much.
The attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion in academia are an attack on every person who has been minoritized. They are an assumption that the default scientist is an able-bodied cisgender white man, and that is not true. As fellow queer people, and especially the trans people in my life who I love, know this government is hell-bent on silencing and eradicating us. But we know that we will never be eradicated. We existed long before they did, and we will continue to exist long after they are gone.
Hello, hello. We are geologists with the University of Kentucky, and no, our opinion does not represent our institution. I am Sarah Morse.
I'm Riley Grove.
You want to start? Or do you want me to do it?
All right. So we're here because science does encourage curiosity, and that's very true. And what our department focuses on is very relevant to many of the people that live in Kentucky. So everyone knows, I'm pretty sure, at least, of the flooding that happened in eastern Kentucky. Repeated flooding. And the devastation that it brought with it. The loss of lives, property, people's entire history gone in a flash of a moment. So, science works to build the foundation to understand why this is happening and how we can best prevent it and make sure that everyone, no matter who they are, doesn't have to face the devastation when that flood comes down towards you.
Our department recently received funding to not only investigate flooding and landslides in Kentucky and local Appalachia, but encourage climate resilience among members of those communities that are constantly affected by these natural disasters. This funding is not only being researched through our department, but also through the Kentucky Geological Survey, and they work tirelessly because they want to protect the people in our state and those in Appalachia. Now, that grant says climate resilience in it, and there has been concern that because it solely says the word climate, that it might be taken away from us.
Now, this is a little bit of importance because we've noticed that the flooding has started to increase. Now, we don't have any long-term data on that, but if this pattern continues, what's the next one gonna bring? And if we have no information on it, how bad is it going to be? Do we really want to find out?
Now, we do have funding to do a lot of this work, but members of our department go out and they collect data and they support these people and bring them resources and talk with them without having any reimbursement provided to them to do this. With the recent funding that just happened from all the precipitation we received, individuals in our department immediately went out days after to not only collect data, but also talk to the people who were affected and show them that we are listening to them and we see them and all that they're going through. So please know that people here who are standing for science are basically impacted by all fields. We all care. We are all here to shout and to be heard. Science, not silence. Thank you.
Woo! You all sound lovely out there. Once again, like everybody else, thank you for coming out. My name is Emily. I am a student at U of L. I am studying sustainability. Once again, my views do not show my university or my teachers, but I'm a student of sustainability. I plan on going into policy making one day, either for the Cabinet of Environment and Energy or here in my hometown of Frankfort. Thank you all for coming. The thing that is threatening science right now, that is threatening our funding, is the idea that if we cut funding, that we can try to make things more efficient. I would like to debunk this right now, that cutting funding will make things more efficient, because as we all know, it will not. Here in Kentucky, we need to be able to be competitive with our science and our research in the future. I have a sign. It's science equals investment. This idea that science is this frivolous thing is simply not true. It goes back into the economy, as we know, and it is investment for our future. Maybe we could use that money for something else or save it, but as pretty much any economist will tell you, investing is really important. And so if science is investing, then why are we trying to cut science funding? The other idea is that if the government stops spending as much money on science, that, oh no, the funding will still be there, it'll just be from companies now. We'll have private investment. There we go. As we all know, and as I think we need to say more, company research is notorious for being biased. Biased research is not helpful. It is not bringing us more towards a better future. We do not want private funding. Another myth is that the money we put into science just disappears. I'm so thankful that the people before me have been talking about how every dollar that we put into science, that we put into NHS, that we put into research goes back into the economy. It doesn't just go away. It goes to the researchers who then spend it at small businesses here in Kentucky or in America. The funding doesn't just burn or vaporize or get put in an offshore savings account for billionaires. Let's see. Another idea that I've heard around is that, once again, we're not going to get rid of all the funding. We'll just get rid of some of the frivolous stuff. You know, the stuff that we don't need. To which I say, politicians don't know. Scientists are the ones that know what is helpful research, not the politicians. We need to have trust. Politicians need to trust that scientists know what is going to be helpful. They know that their research is going to help people. They want their research to help people. One of my favorite science fun facts is that one way that we learned a lot about our brain and about neurons is through squids, because they have giant neurons. Now, maybe a politician would be like, why are you doing research about squid brains? We're not going to fund that. That's weird. But it's been able to help us so much. You can't just cut off the edges and expect to be able to decide from the get-go what is going to be the best or efficient. Let's see. I would like to talk about NHIS. Another idea is that, like, okay, fine. We'll fund all of your research, but we're going to stop some of that other stuff for other countries, which, pardon me, but no. NHIS not only funds amazing projects here in America, it also funds amazing research happening outside the country. It also funds amazing outreach programs to stop diseases like AIDS, like malaria, like tuberculosis. And with the freezes that have been happening right now, those drugs, that help is not going to those other countries. And you know what we're seeing? A rise in tuberculosis, a rise in malaria, a rise in AIDS. Now, I personally think that one of the most amazing things that science has done is get rid of smallpox. I think that is equivalent to us going to the moon. And I also, if there are any economists out there listening, I think that was pretty efficient, because now we've gotten rid of it, and now from as long as our species continue, do not need to spend any more money on smallpox. And I believe that we can do this with other diseases. I believe that we can do this through science. Thank you. Gotta turn back on my phone. Let's see. I'm not an economist. I'm an environmental sustainability major. Our third point here for today is to get rid of restrictions that people are trying to propose on DEI. This goes right back into science. As an environmental scientist, we know that having a diversity of plants makes us more resilient, makes us stronger, makes things grow better rather when you have just one type of plant. And the same goes for any type of biome organization, for Kentucky, for the United States. Diversity is important and makes us stronger, whether it be diversity of race, diversity of gender, of sexuality, of economic status. There is not a most efficient option. We are most efficient when we have several options. As another fun fact, women are 17% more likely to die in car crashes, according to several studies. And part of that is because female testing dummies are not required. This is a very, kind of ridiculous. Diversity is important. We can see the direct effects right now, and we are going to see more effects if we get rid of things like DEI and science funding. For my last thing, I'm a big fan of the movie Interstellar. Who else is? And in that, there is a poem called Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. And I would like to read that, but there's a catch. I want all of you to get out your phones right now. So, you can put down your signs, you can put it under your foot. I want you to get out your phone, and I want you to go ahead and look up who is your senator. You can find it really quickly online. The poem takes like a minute or two. I'm going to look that up. A little cheat code, I know. Get out your contacts. Go ahead and just put your senator into the contacts. Give them a silly name. That way, next time this happens, you don't have to look it up. So, go ahead and get out your phones. I am seeing lots of you all do that. I'm very happy about that. And I'm going to read this poem from Interstellar once I pull it up on my phone again. Whee. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rage at the close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Those wise men at their end know dark is light, because their words had forked no lightning. They do not go gentle into that good night. Good men last wave by, crying how bright their fair deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight and learned too late they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death who see with blinded sight. Blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there sat on the sad height. Curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Thank you for coming out and call your senators.
Can we give it up one more time for my good friend Emily over there? Thank you. They want to be mayor someday, and honestly, I believe they will get it. My name is Tina. My pronouns are she, her, and actually, this is the first protest I've ever been to. Thank you. I wasn't even planning on saying anything here, but I think it is important for people like me to speak up. As a transgender woman, I am used to attacks on my existence being made on the boundaries of faux science. Attempts to strip people like me of their civil rights have been made at this very building. I'm sure you have all heard politicians making a fuss about men and women's sports, something which is not supported by data. Transgender women actually consistently underperform compared to their cisgender women counterparts. But that's the thing. The politicians who make these arguments are not making them in good faith. And that is on purpose. They know that what they are saying is completely ridiculous. They want to waste your time by making you address their bad faith grievances so that they can advance their anti-intellectual agenda. They want to wear you down. They want to make you tired, and they want to make you give up. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to let them. Are you? Are you going to let them? Every time a politician stands up and says something inflammatory, like there are only two genders, we should say, sit down, you reactionary, xenophobic, homophobic, anti-education, anti-choice, leave it to Beaver trip back to the 50s, poor excuse for a human. Because I refuse to capitulate to people who advocate against my existence. Thank you.
The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. Hi, my name is Molly. I'm from the University of Louisville. As you've probably heard several times, my views don't reflect my university or the staff there. I am a research assistant at the Eating and Anxiety Treatment Lab with Claire Cusack. And I'm a psych major. Today set to graduate in May. But when I was in high school, I was a teen with major anxiety. I don't know if you can tell. A binge eating disorder, and living in a house full of brothers who had ideas on what spaces I belonged in, and science was way down on the list. Let's just say that. I was living in the space that for the most part ignored me and my potential. And that filled me with such extreme anxiety that it was really hard to cope. I had really dark years. But science and people around me pulled me through. I developed extreme empathy for others who had lived with that fate, and they do live with that fate in America, and they have for hundreds of years, feeling ignored, feeling passed over. And the scientific community is one such community that I believe advocates for visibility of people that have been shut out of spaces like this one for a long time. And I appreciate that. Gender-affirming care is being denied to people like the children of my childhood best friend. Support for eating disorders is denied all the time. Mental health services to underserved populations like the elementary schoolers at Muhammad Ali in the west end of Louisville are being denied, and their parents can't afford mental health services. Support for many important issues from science to gender expression to racial equality is underwhelming because our government does not deem these issues nearly as significant as they should. And so maybe the government is not significant. Maybe we are. I feel one thing we can do today for the betterment of Kentucky and the country is not only to support science for those in need, but support the people in your lives, the young girls, blokes, and non-binary folks, I am such one, to pursue science if they show an interest, and especially to pursue activism, because if we've learned anything from recent events, it's that these two conversations are going to be intertwined for a very long time. I thank science and activism for leading me to communities where I felt seen and supported. Please continue supporting the intersectional issues by standing up, showing up, and telling Trump to shove it. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Drew Elliott. I'm representing University of Kentucky Markey Cancer Center and Berea, Kentucky. And I'm a lowly technician, so I don't have a doctorate yet or anything. And before I get started about what I wanted to speak to, I just want to say as a white, cis, hetero man that I will never forget my gay and trans friends like Tina that just spoke a second ago. You know, inclusivity is very important, and I think it's important to say that as you know, a normal white guy up here. One of the things that was asked earlier was why we're here, and I just want to talk a little bit about my story briefly. I'm a ham, and I didn't plan this out, so I'll try not to ramble. But I've been a nerd my whole life. I'm the son of a researcher, and I watched her my whole life struggle to get a grant and come home in tears sometimes because the gel didn't work out how she expected, or, you know, just any other silly thing that prevented her from getting the funded she needed to save lives. And so I didn't go into science immediately. I got out of school, languished for a little while, started a business, which I don't recommend. It's really tough. And it was a bakery, and I'd come home from night. Yeah, some people still remember it. I'd come home from working, 10 or 12-hour shift and would read a textbook about chemistry or biology because it's in my blood and it's what I love. And when our bakery failed, I decided to go back to school. And I thought that the reason I was doing science is because I love it so much that I can't do anything else. It's something that's in my blood. It's something that I'm deeply interested in. And so I went through school. I did pretty well. And I graduated with straight A's and made the next step and started doing research at the University of Kentucky Markey Cancer Center under Dr. Kathleen O'Connor, who's here today videotaping me right now. And we research breast cancer, which is really, really important. And while I was doing this research, I still thought I was just doing it because I'm interested in it. And then my uncle died of cancer. And then I talked to my lab mates, and my close friend Min Chen, her brother died of cancer. And I talked to my boss, and her mother died of cancer. And I'm pretty certain that everybody here knows someone that's died of cancer. Turns out Kentucky has the worst cancer statistics in the nation for both death and diagnosis. And so I realized that I'm doing science because I want to save lives. It's not because I'm interested in it. And I think all of you guys want to save lives too. And I'll keep this brief, but saving lives isn't just the reason to do science. It's also the reason we're all out here Because another way we can all save lives is, like everyone else has said, is to call our senators and our congressmen and our state senators and legislators and everyone that represents us, and not to just call them once, but to call them over and over and over until they get tired of hearing from you, and then call them again. And and then when you talk to the people that are just fielding the calls, talk to them. Tell them why you're in support of science. That's it. I've spoke my mind, but I just think it's really important to remember we're all here to save lives.
Hey, sorry. Thank you. My name is Trey Hoyer. I'm an engineering student. And while we've made it abundantly clear how it's our moral imperative to support science and support saving lives and support just pushing humanity forward, it's also important to note just how critical science funding is for the well-being of Kentucky itself. We lag just behind California as the second largest aerospace industry in the country, despite having a fraction of the population, and we should take pride in that. Kentucky builds technology, and we push the country forward. Morehead State University in Kentucky has the best space systems engineering program possibly in the world. We have pioneered the microsatellite movement. Kentucky is the one who sends all the satellites right now orbiting the moon at a fraction of the cost it once was. This fuels our economy. This fuels our well-being. This fuels our education. This fuels our future. And I am absolutely baffled that some people who argue that we need to rescind some rights for the sake of the economy or whatever will just destroy Kentucky's economy like this when we rely so much on science. We rely so much on federal funding. We rely so much on what is right now under attack. And I think when we all make our calls to the people in that building, we have to let them know it is not only our rights that are at risk, it is not only the children that are at risk, it is our economy, it is our state itself that is at risk. Thank you.
I think I got it. It should be fine. Hey everybody, my name is Marina and I'm a graduate student at the University of Kentucky. No, I don't, I'm not vouching for them. Everything I say is my own opinion. One thing I want to say before I start what I had to talk about is we've had a lot of talk about senators and calling them. There is an app called 5 Calls that if you download, basically you put in your zip code, will give you all your senators and have a list of every issue that's currently on the docket that you can click the button. It'll have a script for what you say and then it automatically calls your senators or your representatives. So please use 5 Calls. It's a lot easier. So I'm going to talk about something and then I'm going to pump it up a bit when I'm done. One thing is I am a refugee from a war-torn country. I came here to the United States in 1996 and I've seen what can happen when you don't think it'll happen to you, but it does. Ethnic cleansing, right? It's all fun and games until they start coming for you too, because they're coming after DEI and they're giving us WEI, white, entitled, and incompetence. That's what they're giving us, right? And that type of level of entitlement and incompetence is going to lead to the worst things that are inside of humanity, and we're already seeing it happen. Fascism, it happens in Western societies. Don't let them fool you. Cruelty is the point, right? The cruelty has always been the point to make you feel so low that you're not going to stand up for yourself anymore or anybody else, right? So it's time. Nobody's going to save us, guys.
Nobody's going to save us. You have to save yourselves. We have to save ourselves. And it's doing things like this and going into the streets and telling these people what they need to hear, even if they don't want it, right? And with that said, we got to fight for our right to buy back. All right, couple more chants. I'm going to say who rules the world, and you're going to say nerds. Ready? Who rules the world? Nerds! Who rules the world? Nerds! Who rules the world? Nerds! Woo!
I actually don't have anything else to say, but other than thank you. That is basically the scheduled part of our time. Happy to hang out and chant if you'd like, or if anyone else wants to speak. Mic's still open. What I will say is we have some flyers and stuff on the table for continued action and things you can do beyond today. People have talked about 5 calls, calling your senators. Those things are critical. We will need continued action. It is not just stand up for science on March 7th. It's stand up for each other every day from here on out. So please get some materials before you go and share widely. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Yeah, thanks.
I just wanted to ask if there's going to be a space to access any of the video or photos from today.
After I process it, I'm emailing it to them. So I'm sure they're going to be posting clips and whatnot on social media.
As far as my stuff is concerned, photos in the live stream and the other video, MFTW Media. That's what basically on all social media, just about.
Do you mind if I take pictures?
Yeah, that's fine. And the web that QR code won't work, unfortunately, but find.mftw.media is my link tree.
Okay.
As well. So yeah, this is currently going out to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and I'll be sometime later tomorrow or something. I'll upload the live to YouTube and all that stuff too, and then I'll be posting photos and everything the coming days.
Your talk was amazing.
Okay, so music is kicked in. That's going to cause all kinds of problems, so I'm going to wrap it up quick. In case you didn't hear what I just said, I'll be uploading the VOD to YouTube. Photos will be shared online on the various social medias from FTW Media. But yeah, good speakers today. Gonna wrap things up here, and y'all stay safe. Till next time, peace.